How does the nervous system control movement? To answer that, we must look at how somatic motor pathways are organized and how different brain regions coordinate movement. We'll start with the types of neurons involved in somatic motor control. The key players are upper motor neurons, inner neurons, and lower motor neurons. Upper motor neurons are located in the motor cortex or brainstem. They don't directly synapse on muscles. Instead, they send signals down to the spinal cord or cranial nerve nuclei. Their job is to initiate and plan voluntary movement. In the spinal cord, upper motor neurons may synapse on interneurons, which act as relay stations and can be excitatory or inhibitory, depending on the motor task. The final common pathway is the lower motor neuron, the one that leaves the spinal cord via the anterior horn, travels through the ventral root, and synapses directly on skeletal muscle fibers. This is the neuron that causes the muscle to contract. Now, we can divide somatic motor pathways into two main systems, direct and indirect motor pathways. The direct pathway, also called the pyramidal system, includes the corticospinal and corticobulbar tracts. These originate in the primary motor cortex and descend through the internal capsule and brainstem. Most corticospinal fibers decussate at the medullary pyramids, forming the lateral corticospinal tract, which controls fine, skilled movements of the limbs. The anterior corticospinal tract, which remains mostly ipsilateral until the spinal cord level, controls axial muscles. The corticobulbar tract targets cranial nerve nuclei and controls the muscles of the face, head, and neck. The direct pathway is all about precise, voluntary control of movement. The indirect pathways, or extrapyramidal system, originate from brainstem motor centers like the vestibular nuclei, tectum, reticular formation, and red nucleus. These include tracts like the vestibulospinal, reticulospinal, and rubrospinal tracts. They regulate posture, muscle tone, and reflex-oriented movements. In other words, movements that are more automatic and subconscious. Even though these systems seem separate, they don't function in isolation. That's where the basal nuclei and cerebellum come in. The basal nuclei, especially the caudate, putamen, and globus pallidus, modulate motor activity by influencing activity in the motor cortex. They help initiate movements and suppress unwanted motion. Damage to this system is what we see in disorders like Parkinson's disease, where the basal nuclei can't regulate motor output effectively, leading to tremors or rigidity. Cerebellum plays a different but equally important role. It receives input from proprioceptors, the vestibular system, and the motor cortex, and uses this information to fine-tune ongoing movement. It helps coordinate timing, smoothness, and precision. Basically, it prevents you from overshooting or staggering. Damage to the cerebellum causes ataxia, where movements become uncoordinated and jerky. To summarize, upper motor neurons initiate movement, lower motor neurons execute it, and interneurons shape the reflexes and tone. The direct pathways handle voluntary, precise motion. The indirect pathways manage posture and automatic movements. And behind the scenes, the basal nuclei and cerebellum work constantly to ensure those movements are smooth, purposeful, and appropriate for the situation.